And then moving on to our next question, which I think is more targeted towards Doreen. I know you talked briefly about the CSS profile, but essentially this question is, are international students eligible for financial aid? And then if not, could you talk about what the CSS profile entails, at least on a general scale? But yeah.
So for international students, as I mentioned, so you do use the CSS profile. And in the beginning, it's somewhat of a long, not really long process, but there are a couple of questions that you need to get through. So for example, they would mainly ask for your parents' income so that they know like if, you know, what scholarship package to offer you based on like if your family can afford it. So they'd ask you questions surrounding that. Also, as well as the support that your parents gave you, or the support that your family contributed over your high school years, so that they know how much have they been paying towards your education, and if the same can be available towards your college education. And then also ask you, let's say, the assets that your parents own. So it's all information about the general information regarding your family's income and if your family can afford that. And even for some universities, they use different application methods. So one is the CSS profile, which is more of a general one, but for some, they have a form called the International Students Financial Application Form, short called the ISFA form. And this one is mainly shorter and compared to the CSS profile, because all you have to indicate is what your parents are willing to contribute. So for some, if 0 is the amount, then don't be scared to put 0 if that's the reality of, let's say, your financial situation. Because for some people, they think, let's say, if you put 0, you may not end up getting a scholarship. But really just, you know, show the real, or rather the reality of what your family can contribute, because that will be in your benefit at the end of the day, so that you can actually get the scholarship package that would match, you know, your family's ability. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. All right, moving on to our next question. How can family members or parents help you within the process?
I think having your family's input is very important, and they can help in the sense that like they know you the most because they have obviously lived with you for your entire life, so they could be like, oh, I don't think you'd be happy going this far from your home, or let's think about like the extracurriculars you've been involved in the past couple of years, and how the schools that you're applying to will give you kind of like the same sense that like of what you've enjoyed the past couple of years, so they can just give you guidance with those little things. And when you need input, like, oh, this school has this, but this school has this, which do you think I should choose? They can give you that type of input. So yeah.
Amazing.
If it's coming from a family perspective of how the family member can help the student, like if you're a parent at wondering how you can help the student, do your own research also. Like do your own research on the universities that you think that your child is interested in applying to. So asking if it's like maybe your first time, you don't know anything about the college process, definitely you email these schools, you ask all these questions. If you're worried about financial aid, you talk to these schools about financial aid. These colleges have an email, they have an email that you can reach out, they have phone numbers that you can reach out to for international, they have an international line as well, and they have a in this, you know, in a state line as well. So again, if you're new to the process as like a parent or an older sibling, or you know, whoever you are to the student who's, you know, about to be applying to colleges, reach out on your own end, coming from a family member or coming from whoever you are, and express that, hey, this is my first time, I need help. Also, you can become very like active in that part of the time, meaning like also reaching out to your child's school counselors so that you can get emails on like opportunities that you can help your student, your child, whoever, apply to and stuff like that. So definitely you can also reach out. Don't leave it. It is a lot for the student to do all on their own. So I would say that I had a lot of help with that because I kind of had like an inside view with like GW specifically, because I actually had like my sister-in-law who went to that school. So she gave me insight on that as well. So yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I think the biggest thing as well, which is a really important thing, is that money is a really important factor in a lot of these things. Scholarships obviously will be really important, but I think just really communicating with your child about what they're planning, what schools they're looking at, and just like what kind of scholarships they'll need to end up having if they want to go to those schools, I think is just a really important thing, both in law school and in undergrad. I think oftentimes it's really important that you just make sure that you are as transparent as possible so that way they know what they can expect when they're even deciding what schools they want to apply for. If they know like they're not going to necessarily have like the most support, then they're probably not going to apply to a school, like across the country per se, or they'll probably try to apply to a school that has a lot more financial aid opportunities or ones that do try to give a need match kind of financial aid opportunity. And for that, I think those are tend to be a little bit more on the top schools, but they often do really try to be as need accessible as possible. All right, moving on to the next question, which I can touch on briefly. I know we have a good amount of questions, so I want to make sure we get through all of them in time. And then, Doreen, if there's anything else that you'd like to add for it, please feel free. Is it more difficult for international students to apply to public universities in the US because some have a difference in financial aid distributed to native and international students, or is it just okay? I think as a blanket state for any public US institution, they have a like mandatory amount of students that they have to accept, one just based on their state. For instance, University of Maryland and the University of North Carolina, I think they have very strict requirements that like a certain amount of students must come from Maryland or must come from North Carolina, which then makes it so that international students have less of a percentage in there. However, for all of these schools, they normally do publish their percent of international students. So that is a really good place to look. I think one that I'm thinking of is NYU has one of the highest amount of international students at their school. So it's really good to just take a look at the school and see what percentage of international students have they accepted in the past before you actually go and apply. And Doreen, if there's anything else you'd like to add, please feel free.
So just staying on what you've said, is really looking into the university because for some they mainly need aware towards international students. So really seeing, so that means they would have a limit in some way or another depending on the financial aid that you require. So again, once again, just going to the university and even reaching out to the financial aid offices and seeing how the financial aid on your side. I'd say it's really important. Like, don't be scared to reach out to the financial aid offices because they would be your main source of information in case of any inquiries.
All right, amazing. And then moving on to our next question, what are some extracurricular activities and projects do you think that will make a 14 to 18-year-old stand out, especially then as an international student? Doreen, again, sadly, you'll probably have to answer this one again, but also if anyone else has any insight into just things that will make someone stand out, please feel free to add.
I would say really involving yourself in something that you're passionate about, so your interest, and not really doing them for the sake of, making your application look good. So I'd say having more of a diverse list. So for example, having some, if you consider yourself to be a leader, it's really good to have those opportunities where you can gain experiences, different leadership opportunities. For example, at your school, if you can be the president of your school or class representative. So, having those leadership positions at times can look good on your application. But on the other hand, sports as well can be really good. So if you're someone who really loves doing sports as well, also being able to take some leadership positions in the sports that you play, for example, being captain or, some sort of things like that. But another thing I'd say also starting something. Let's say if you have a passion, let's say in, I don't know, let's say arts, like let's say you love arts, and you could start an initiative where you teach, let's say, your community or your community of the children in your community how to paint or some sort of that. So having those in the projects that show that you're an initiator, so you love to start things or you make a difference in the lives of others, really does do make you stand out. And again, doing things that you feel like you generally like what you do and you do have a passion for them. So there's not really specific one that I can say, oh, if you do music, let's say play an instrument, then that will make you stand out. But it's just, something that you believe you're passionate about it and putting the effort, I believe you can make it great. But big emphasis on, starting things yourself. So if you can start I don't know, a project, or do an internship, volunteer at organizations, those are, pretty good.
Amazing. Anyone else want to tune in? All right, great. Moving on, somewhat on the same note, but also applicable for everyone. How do you demonstrate your genuine interest in a field/major you choose? How can you really show the university that this is the one you truly want? I can actually get started on this one, and then if anyone else wants to add on, please feel free. I think something that will help you out in figuring out this process is to know that like you don't have to know 120% this is the path you want to go down. You should just make sure that you show that you've had an interest in it. One really easy way to do this is to just be really consistent in the things that you've done. So if there is this one club that you tried out freshman year that you did like, well, first thing I'd recommend is like you tried a bunch of things your first year or even your second year in high school. And then once you figure out the things that you really do like and the things that you really do enjoy, continue going down things in that similar path. So if there's a club, and I can give an example for me, I really enjoyed mock trial. So after the first year, I stayed within mock trial. I ended up doing speech and debate as well. And then after moving forward from that, I also took classes that were related to trial and that were related to speech and debate. So once you know from a foundation, this is something that genuinely excites you, then you can now add on extracurriculars and classes as well when you get more flexibility of things that actually give you that interest. I also think it's important to note that like it's not going to be perfect and these schools don't expect you to be perfect. At the end of the day, you're applying when you're 17/18 years old. That is a very early time in your life and you're obviously going to change a lot, but it's just making sure that you have that foundational interest and that can really be shown by you having a proven track record of either being in one club for multiple years, doing a type of class for multiple times in a row, or like working with that teacher as well. So let's say if you really liked mock trial or you really liked speech and debate, there's a class that teaches that. Maybe your letter to recommendation, that should be from a professor who saw you in that specific field. So then they can really speak to again, I saw them do this interest that they had. It was clear that they were passionate about it because of X, Y, and Z. I think those are the best ways that you can really demonstrate and show the interest that you have to a university. And yeah, anyone else want to add on to that?
Internships. Internships will very much show you're interested in something. I will say the internship that I did was far off from what I am majoring now, but I also think that when it comes to, I understand that you're trying to do something that appeals to the college that shows that you're interested in, like, you know, your major and stuff like that. But also it's very important that you do these internships and join these clubs before your own gain as well, because through that internship I was able to tell what I didn't want to do because I got to experience it. And it's very different from studying about it and hearing about it from other people's perspective about, you know, what you're interested in doing, but you will really never know until you're the one who's doing it. So when I did the internship in this field that I thought I wanted to go into, I realized that it's cool, it's calm, and I like it, but I just don't think it's the right fit for me. So don't get too caught up in, OMG, like I did this internship, I wasted all this time because I don't even want to do this anymore. Like, don't think that way. Really just think of it more about, okay, great, because it's only going to make your path more clear. At first, it's going to be a little confusing because it's like, I thought I wanted to do this and now I'm doing it and now I don't like it. But no, I think it's very like clarifying because then you're kind of like, you know what you don't want to do. Like very much, I did not know what I wanted to do for the longest amount of time, but I knew what I didn't want to do. And by knowing what I didn't want to do, I knew where I should be. I knew where not to bother looking at, you know? I knew what wasn't meant for me. And so again, by experiencing these clubs and by doing these internships, and if you're having trouble looking for internships, I know specifically if you're in the Montgomery County area, they have a lot of internships, but also reach out to your counselors again, your counselors, your school administration. They have a lot of organizations that are waiting for students to, like, you know, come and ask them about it. Go on Google, look in the area that you are in. If you're living in a different state or a different country, look at like internships in this area, you know. Actually go to facilities, like go to banks. Like if you want to do something that has like to do with economics, I would say, or something like the bank area, go to these banks, ask them like, hey, do you guys do any internships? I don't think that this is like something that you can do this anywhere, wherever you're at, go to these places. If you're wanting to do something that has to do in like doctor and like nurses, going to the health profession, go to hospitals, ask them about it. Say, hey, do you guys do any internships or like anything that I can, like programs for like students who are interested in going and pursuing this like career field? They'll let you know about what is the requirement to be able to do it and all that type of stuff. So definitely don't just wait for them to come to you. And like Google can also be very like broad about it. So go to these places and like show up and like ask them like, hey, I'm looking for an internship, I'm really interested in this, who can I speak to that has information about all this? And 90% very much can confirm that they will give you information. They'll even maybe tell you that it's a little too early, that you should wait until your junior year to come back and ask them again. But that's even good, because then when you're coming back your junior year to ask them about this, you could say, hey, last year I spoke to this person about this. I showed interest then. I'm back here my junior year. And so, asking for information. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. All right. And then our next question is for Nyla specifically. Are there any medicine scholarship programs that you know of or applied to? Because I understand that universities don't often offer scholarships for people on the pre-med track, perchance.
I did not apply to any specific medical scholarships, but I did apply for scholarships in my county that I was able to receive. But no, to answer your question, I did not apply to any specific medical scholarships, but I know that, again, with the search engines, if you try and narrow down who you are, and if that's an interest of yours, I'm sure you can find one there.
All right, amazing.